With a mission to deliver fiscally responsible, highly dependable services to the citizens of our community and the region with integrity and professionalism, this is the City of Albany Commission Meeting with Mayor Bo Duro, Mayor Pro Tem John Howard, Ward 1, Matt Fuller, Ward 2, BJ Fletcher, Ward 3, Chad Warbington, Ward 4, Bob Langstaff Jr., Ward 5, Demetrius Young, Ward 6, City Manager Sharon Subadale, City Clerk Sonia Talbot, and City Attorney Nathan Davis. This is the City of Albany Commission Meeting.
Good morning.
Good
morning.
Will.
I can't hear the mayor.
Is that it? Good morning.
Morning.
Should we call the roll to find out who's participating? Could we do that, Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Ward 3? Ward 4?
Yes, here.
Ward 5?
Here. Here.
Here. Before we get started, if I could, Tommy Gregors, Executive Director at G-Hall, there's a meeting last night, and he announced that G-Hall had received some funds that will be transferred over to the city, and Mr. Gregors is here. I asked that he give us some kind of background and explanation, but if y'all don't mind, we'll start with Tommy and let him get in and out.
I can't hear him.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to let Tommy come sit in my chair. He can be on my. There you go.
As part of the Hurricane Michael cleanup that we suffered, Chi-Hall was one of the FEMA projects, and we partnered with the city and to get the debris cleaned up. We cleaned up over 25,000 cubic yards of debris at Chi-Hall. We sent that project into FEMA. We've gotten the first reimbursement for that, and we wanted to present the city a check for just over $200,000 for their portion of that cleanup as part of the reimbursement. And again, thank everybody for the partnership, and we just want to pass this along to everybody. I'll leave this for Mr. Mayor.
That might be a bad idea. We'll get it to the city manager. Okay. Thank you, Tommy. And Ms. Hicks, if you'd read the first item, please. Oh, I got that. We have an expense report. That's for information. Is that correct? No action is needed on that. And the next item pertains to a voting delegate. The GMA meeting is held, I think, the last weekend in June in Savannah, and there will be a virtual meeting this year, and I believe we need a voting delegate. Is that what this is?
You need to unmute Q. We can't hear him.
That's correct, Mayor. We need a voting delegate from the board. If no one decides to attend, then we would need a proxy. I contacted Janice Edison at GMA yesterday, and she told me that if we decide to designate a proxy, that Mayor James Wilbanks from Pelham, or he's our district director, or Judy Power, she's our district vice president. Either one of those would be our person.
Okay. Is any member of the board willing to serve as the voting delegate?
I'll volunteer if nobody
Okay.
else wants to do it.
In any competition for that post?
Please compete.
Well, if not, can we just put that on the agenda to nominate Commissioner Warmington to serve? And of course, he'll need some instructions, Mr. Hicks. I think that it would just be a short window of time that he'd need to participate. But with that, we move to public administration and finance matters. The next item, would you read that?
Yes, sir. Number 1, FAA, FTA, CARES Act funding awards.
Okay. And is Mr. Hamilton going to make a presentation here?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Good morning.
Good morning. Albany Transit and Southwest Georgia Regional Airport have received a notice of intent to award funds through the CARES Act associated with COVID-19 impacts. This federal government stimulus plan will provide operating assistance to transit and the airport. The transit award amount is $5,689,589. The aviation award amount is $15,930,908. These funds can be used for operating and capital assistance. All are contingent upon FAA and FTA approval.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Hamilton? Commissioner Howard? Commissioner Fuller?
No, sir.
Is Commissioner Fletcher?
No questions.
Commissioner Warrington?
Yeah. Mr. Hamilton, so for the transit, I see in the documentation that says 3.6 million for operating and 1.3 for capital. Are we bound by that breakout? Operating versus capital?
No, sir. They will give us some flexibility on that.
Okay. And another thing I saw in some of the write-up was, I guess the transit amount would be a lump sum payment, and aviation, we would submit invoices as we spent the money, or are they both administered in that way?
They're both reimbursable expenses. You have to submit documentation and be reimbursed.
Okay. That's all I got.
Commissioner Langstaff?
No question.
Commissioner Young?
Yes, sir. Just wanted to know, does the transportation department have any plans to utilize those funds to make, I guess, our transit system as well as our airport more, I guess, safe from COVID infection? Have you all planned that, or what do you have in store for us to, kind of make sure that everybody can feel safe going back on the buses and going back to the airport?
Well, we have some measures in place now, sir. As far as, we're requiring on the transit side, we're requiring everybody to wear masks and facial coverings to board the bus. And as far as the airport, you do your social distancing. Those are the things we have in place now. But as far as a plan for the funds, we've been talking with the city manager and finance, of course. Maybe she'll lay that out a little bit more later in the presentation here. But there are things in place, as far as COVID-19 impacts, where we're trying to limit interaction, I guess, with passengers.
One of the things that we are doing, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Can you hear me, Commissioner Young, Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I can hear you.
One of the things that we are doing on transit is we're going to enclose the driver compartment, which allows the driver to have some separation from passengers. This is something we had started to look at even before COVID for driver safety, but it's we've already placed the order for the initial units that will be installed in buses to give the driver some separation. So if you can envision a plexiglass door between the driver and the passengers as they board, because at some point we will go back to boarding from the front and we will go back to fare collection. So that's something that we've already put in place. And in terms of the airport, there are social distancing measures that have already been put in place and will be continued into the future. As you'll hear in the budget, the biggest impact for us is we won't have to subsidize the operations of transit from the general fund. So that's really the one of the best features of the CARES Act from a local government perspective.
Thank you. Just, I guess specifically, I just want to see, make sure we're doing everything we can to make sure our riders and our drivers are safe. Of course, our drivers are our frontline people, our essential workers, and we got to do everything we can to make them safe on once we get everything back going.
Yes, sir.
That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Young. My questions, I guess we could cover that in the budget. I was really interested in knowing how much of the budget amounts for the airport and Albany Transit would be covered by this, and I assume that's one reason we are going to be able to balance the budget exactly what the dollar figure is, but I guess we can talk about that later. I did want to mention water, gas, and light. There will be a resolution expressing appreciation for employees. We saw the county commission did that, and I would ask for y'all's opinion on a resolution expressing our appreciation to public safety, public works, and Albany Transit, and any other employees who've been coming to work throughout this long ordeal every day. And I guess we can address that on other matters, but if y'all remind me about that, I would appreciate it. Anything, Madam City Manager, that you'd like to speak to?
No, just to affirm that this is absolutely helping us with our budget. Especially on the airport side, we're able to project into the future. It's not just the current year, but future years will help with our operating expense. And we made a presentation to the Airport Commission last week. Also, so you can see how we intend to use the CARES Act funding to support.
Okay. Thank you, Madam City Manager. The next item is the Small Business Relief Program. And is Ms. Gaskins going to speak to that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Ms. Gaskins?
Good morning, Mayor, Commissioners, Ms. Superintendent. This morning we have before you a proposed presentation for a small business relief program. And I think you guys have a copy of the PowerPoint that's prepared. As you guys know, many of our small businesses have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. As a result, staff has prepared a draft proposal that will provide both financial and technical assistance for those small businesses. Next slide, please. The Small Business Relief Program will include 3 components. It is a 3-component strategic PROAM program that we're proposing. One of them includes making technical assistance available for those who are interested in preparing and participating in the CARES Act program. As you guys know, there are a couple of programs that are available for our small businesses to take advantage of. Of course, one of them is the EIDL Advance, the PPP, which is a payroll protection program. There's also an employment retention tax credit program, and there are other 7A loans that can be considered for small businesses located within the city of Albany. For those who are interested in applying for these programs, we are available to provide technical assistance to help them navigate that process. We also include within this program a proposed grant program for the small businesses as well. And also the last component consists of utility assistance. Next slide, please. So for the small business local grant, we are looking at proposing those grants in the amounts of $2,500 to $10,000 for eligible businesses who have up to $500,000 of annual gross receipts and 15 or less employees. The available funding source for this proposed grant comes from $350,000 for the Community Development Block Grant and $350,000 for a match for City Reserve funds, for a total of $700,000 that will be awarded to eligible small businesses located within the city of Albany. These funds in the Small Business Grant Program will be administered by the Department of Community and Economic Development. Of course, businesses which are eligible will include LLC, S corporations, sole proprietors, and nonprofits are not eligible for this particular grant. Businesses, of course, must be in business for 2 years, and we're also asking that they certainly take advantage of the CARES Act program as well. Next slide, please. How can they apply? They can apply for the grant program by applying for online. We actually understand the shelter-in-place component is still very much in effect. So we're making it easy for them to participate, and we're actually putting the application online so that they can apply at that point. And these are just a couple of things on this PowerPoint slide that they will need. They're going to need their application, of course, the current business license, and the Georgia state registration. When we first started talking about the program, we initially were going to ask for the 2018 tax returns. We're thinking about how we can get the program launched without that, as we're interested in providing the program without making any challenges for these small businesses as well. And so these are just some of the eligibility criteria that they would need in order to participate in the program. Next slide, please. So the utility assistance program is the last component of the program, and this is basically an opportunity for customers who are a customer payment status for the last 12 months to take their deposits and utilize them as a refund to be placed towards payments. They also have the ability to be offered flexible payment arrangements to those businesses, again, directly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Next slide. So just as a recap, 3 components of the program, of course, economic injury disaster loan coming from the CARES Act program, the EIDL component, the PPP, which is a payroll protection program, the employee retention tax credit, and of course, our very own local Albany relief program as well, which is our grant program. Next slide, please. And also, we just want to remind everybody that our small businesses do matter. They are the heart of our community, and we want to do what we can to provide any assistance to make sure that those businesses are sustainable. Next slide, please. And we just want to take this opportunity to thank you for your support as always, and certainly thank you for the support that you offer to our small businesses. Are there any questions?
Commissioner Howard?
Ms. Gatson.
Yes, sir.
Who will be the watchdog over this fund to make sure you get in the right hand?
Of course, the city has provided a committee that's working on the program. I will be one of those committee members. We have staff members also from the utility department, and we also have staff members from the Community and Economic Development Department as well. So there's a collaboration of a lot of resources that have been provided and merged together to make sure that we are not leaving anybody behind, and no one will be left behind in terms of participating in this program.
A follow-up question. if we have some of these businesses that apply for this loan and they have got a loan in the past from the community development and they are not in good standing, would they be able to apply?
They will certainly be able to apply. What we'll do is research and evaluate what their conditions were. Certainly there are some criteria, as we said in some of those slides, as it relates to eligibility. If they are eligible, we will certainly evaluate them. And keep in mind, the program includes a three-pronged approach. So if there's something that they're not eligible for in one department, that we might provide some assistance for them in the other department, for instance, through the CARES Act program or through the utility assistance program. And keep in mind too, for the small business relief part, for the local part, we're trying to provide that, or we're going to provide that if you approve that in the form of a grant. So that will not be a loan.
Okay, and a follow-up question about this payroll protection program. Would it follow the federal government saying that he or she must keep those employees on for more than 8 weeks?
Yes, sir. With the payroll protection program, that program is specified by what Congress voted into law. So we will have to follow what SBA has established as it relates to the rules and guidelines for that. If you guys have been following the CARES Act program, specifically the payroll protection program, that component is built on the foundation of job creation and job sustainability. So the majority of that money, there's a percentage of that money that must be used to make sure that the employees are sustained in terms of employment. So that is certainly correct.
Okay, and a follow-up question. And you said your office would administer this, oversee this funds that are being given to small business. And you said something about can be forgiven if they maintain those certain criteria.
Yes, sir. Well, as I said, there are three components. Of course, our department is one of the departments, but for the Small Business Development Grant, that is coming through Ms. Shalina Hawkins' department and Ms. Phyllis Brown. So we have a group of staff members that are available in that particular department to help administer the grant component. We also have staff members in the Utilities Department that will help monitor to make sure that applicants are getting what they need from the Utilities Department. And the downtown office will also oversee the CARES Act Technical Assistance Program. So there are a lot of watchmen over the program to make sure that everybody's getting what they need. What we understand is that one applicant might not need what the other applicant may need. And there's no one size that fits all. So we have a lot of staff members involved to make sure that we are basically addressing all of the needs of the applicants.
And a final question, once these small business individuals receive their money, would this commission be given the privilege to look at those after those that have made the application?
Yes, sir.
Qualify?
Yes, sir. You're welcome to look at that information. Of course, information that's confidential, we can certainly redact that information if we need to, but you guys are more than welcome to be able to look at that. Also keep in mind, for those businesses who are applying, there are things that we're asking for them even after they get the money. There are milestones that we're asking them to capture. We want to know how many jobs were created or sustained. We want to know basically if they were able to reopen their doors. So there are other variables that we're measuring once they get these dollars to make sure that there was a direct positive impact on these small businesses.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Commissioner Fuller?
Yes, good morning. If the local CDBG grant fund of $350, is that a requirement to do the $350 from city reserves to be able to get the $350 from the CDBG grant?
Are you asking if we have to match that dollar for dollar? Is that your question, Commissioner Fuller?
Yes, ma'am.
No, sir. That is not a requirement that we match it dollar for dollar. What we were hearing whenever, I think you guys heard Ms. Shalina Hawkins present the information about community development block grants at our last meeting. Also, her department has been doing the public hearings, and they've been engaged with some of the small businesses as it relates to what the needs are in the community. After doing that research, we've determined that we will need at least about $700,000 in order to successfully implement the program. So we're asking the city, since we're getting these dollars from the community development block grant, if they would support a dollar for dollar match so that we can certainly be able to help our small businesses.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Fletcher?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Ms. Gaskins and everyone really, Chris Clark, the head of our chamber, I've been following what a lot of counties are doing, Hall County, Calhoun, Ellaville, etc. And they are, there's a Georgia Entrepreneur and Small Business Network that really is not only trying to help the small businesses, they're trying to find why they find themselves in this situation every time there's a disaster, and they're trying to make them strong. It looks like they have an understanding that once a small business closes, it's tough to get your doors open back up. So they're trying to stop them from drowning altogether. And I'd like to know if Ms. Gaskins, are you familiar with that business network, and is there a possibility to set aside time and a committee to where we could get some of the small businesses that would want to know, avenues out here that would help them so they could just get stronger, stay ahead of the game. As a home, they tell you to stay 3 months ahead of the curve. Small businesses need to learn the tricks and trades to do that. And I would love to see us with these dollars offer an educational piece on the side of it. Thank you.
I think that's a very good point, Commissioner Fletcher. To your point, actually, we have been working with, of course, we've spoken with Ms. Barber at the Chamber of Commerce here in Albany, but we've also been in communication with the SBDC, the Georgia Department of Community Affairs, and the Georgia Department of Economic Development to do just what you're saying, and that is to make sure that our City of Albany small businesses get these resources. I've also been on the conference calls with Mr. Clark, with the Georgia Chamber, trying to make sure we keep our ear to the pulse of what they're saying, not only at the local level, but at the state and federal level as well, so that our local businesses can certainly take advantage of these opportunities. What we are hearing is just what you're saying, is that those small businesses who are less likely to have accessibility to the CPAs and the bankers and the attorneys are the ones that are probably going to get left behind. Also, just to give you guys an idea too, if you approve this program, what we're going to do is provide webinars, and we're going to do them strategically within different days and different times of the day so that everybody can be informed, be educated, and be aware. Also, spoke with Ms. Phyllis yesterday. In addition to the webinars that we're going to be providing about this program, there are also going to be some additional workshops to make sure that the small businesses understand how to get the funds, how they can apply. We can also talk about the hurdles that they're embracing so that we can find solutions to those challenges. So our goal is to make sure that the program is successful, make sure that the businesses are sustainable once they apply for the program, but also identify some long-term strategies that they can be successful, but also be sustainable.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Gaskins. And something else that I would, maybe the utility board could even look at. It looks like the two things that hit the hardest is the payroll and utilities. And I know that the ones that are surviving out here, we were coming off of a good January, February, March. Many small businesses actually trending up. So is there an opportunity when this is all over with that we again go back to the small businesses and say, look, why don't you, when you have them good weeks or you have them good months, and they will come in time, why can't we suggest to them that they pay a little extra on their utilities, sort of bank it for reserve, and then when this happens, it's almost like what the city is doing for residential, to maybe offer that to businesses, because it would be nice if this happened, if some of these small businesses would have been able to breathe 3 months on utilities. And thank you for all you're doing. Thank you for following up with Mr. Clark, because Bainbridge, I'm watching Bainbridge. It is amazing, their growth. It's amazing how they understand that entrepreneurship in small town America, when you're facing the reality, when we do get ready to go back to vacation, a lot of people that travel to South Georgia and they want to go to their favorite little mom and pop shop or little mom and pop restaurant. Mom and pop's not going to be there if we can't guide them out of this. So thank you again, all of you, the city manager, the mayor, commissioners, because this could hit worse than any mall ever hit us many years ago. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ruster. Commissioner Ward.
Yeah, Ms. Gaskins. So just really for our understanding and even the many people who are watching this, so if I were a small business owner, I owned a hair salon, owned another small business, what are going to be the criteria that determines how much a business will get? Is it based on your damages or your amount of hurt, or is it based on what are the key things that will determine if a business gets from 2,500 to 10,000?
It depends on the number of employees that direct. And of course, there again, for us, we are also following some of the guidelines of the CARES Act program. We want to make sure that our local citizens are employed. It depends on the number of employees that you have. It depends on too what your needs are or what your damages have been. We don't know what your damages might have been, might not be my damages. So we're going to assess each individual applicant individually to see what their needs are and see how we can find ways to help them. But we're looking at their financials. We're looking at their bottom lines in terms of the budgetary parameters, but we're also looking at the number of employees that they're employing and the number of people that they're keeping employed. And we're also looking at the number of years they've been employed and had a business within the city of Albany.
Okay. And my next question is, how quick is, let's say we're all in favor of this, how quick is this going to be put together, and could a business expect to get some help from this program?
Great question. Ashley, you guys this topic will go back on the City Commission regular meeting on the 26th. At that time, you guys will make a determination if you're going to approve it. We are prepared to do webinars as early as today. But what we want to do, if the project is not voted on until the 26th, we're ready to have the webinars the next day. I don't think that's smart. What we want to do is do some type of marketing, let people know that the webinars are being offered, and then maybe the next week start to have the webinar. So I think we're going to take a couple of days to advertise the program, let people know of the webinars, the date and times, and then we will start to immediately start to do the webinars. We're ready to launch as soon as you guys approve us.
Yeah, and I would think at the end of our discussion, we're going to do a straw poll. You know, I would hope from the straw poll that would give you a good indication of go ahead and get the wheels moving, and all we need is just a formal vote next week. So hopefully we'll have that at the end here. The last question I have is, and I think you touched on this, is the 700,000. Is that enough? Have you had some initial discussion or some sensing of is that going to be enough?
To be honest with you, COVID-19 has just dramatically impacted all of the businesses everywhere. And I think that is a really good start. Will there be damages after we've utilized the $700,000? I think the answer to that question is probably going to be yes. But what we're going to do, the information that we're gathering, we're putting all that information to the City of Albany's website, and we're able to take that information, be able to evaluate the variables in terms of what the applicants are putting into that database. Once we get that data, that's going to allow us to see, you were asking how are we going to determine who's eligible? That will allow us to see how many businesses had 4 employees, 5 employees, what was their operating expenses. There are a lot of different variables that we'll be able to take from the information from the application and be able to determine what we do in phase 2, should there be a desire for a phase 2.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Langstaff.
No question.
Commissioner Young.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Ms. Gaskins, for all your hard work and as well as the community economic development people. One thing I would like for you to make clear is the application process and how that will kind of play out once people start to apply, and talk about the I guess, you know, what will be the priority. Is it going to be first come, first serve? or how is that going to work out so people will know ahead of time?
Yes, sir. The application is about a 10 to 12 questionnaire. We wanted to make it simple. Most of the applicants who are applying, we already have information on them. They're kind of already in our database. But the application is online, asking for your name, your number, address, your basic information. But there again, we're looking at employees, sustainability. How has COVID-19 impacted your businesses? How can we help? As relates to how they apply, they simply go online. To do that, it is a first come, first serve. So whoever is able to get their information in and get a completed application with the supporting documentation, those are the ones that we will be able to put in queue and get those processed first.
Okay, and you will make an offline application as well?
If we need to do that, and of course it's really simple, we can just print the one from the database that we have, and we can make that available if we need to. Okay,
because we do still have some small businesses who are not necessarily tech savvy. Now, if you would talk a little bit about how people can access the assistance that you will be offering. I know you will be doing it from your office as well as the Community Economic Development office, and how can they get in touch with you all?
Sure. Whenever we start to do the webinars, they're going to see at the end of the presentation, there's going to be a contact person for each variable. For instance, there will be a contact person specifically if they have questions about the CARES Act program. There's going to be a contact person specifically if they have questions about the grant program. Then there's a contact person specifically for the utilities program. For the people who you mentioned that are not tech savvy, if they get into the system and they're starting to have challenges, they will contact one of those contact people on the webinar, and we'll help facilitate that. We'll make sure that they are able to get in, get the information that they need, download it into the system, that does not become a hurdle or challenge for them. But we will have contact information. I think there are about 6 different contact people on our PowerPoint to make sure that they have direct contact to us all.
And I would like to also mention the work that has already been done to engage our small businesses already. There have already been some webinars starting out with what Mr. Warbington did with the hair salons and the person from the state board that just outlined what was going to be necessary for those businesses to open back up and safely. And what that allowed us to do was myself, along with other groups here in Albany, one of them being Sawega Rising, is to get with other businesses to find out exactly what they were going to need. And that kind of leads me to the point, which is probably going to be a theme for me in this meeting, is how can we best help Albany open back up safely? And is there a way, I would like to kind of know if there's some type of method that we can require those funds be utilized to make these businesses safe. I know people have outstanding bills and things that they're trying to catch up with, but what I think we need, what's prudent to do, is to make sure we are using those funds and our resources to make sure the businesses are able to, first of all, afford PPE, safety equipment, whatever they need to do to maybe reconstruct their businesses, to, allow them to go by the guidelines, and also help them procure the equipment as well, because we know that the supply chain for PPE is, it's almost like a wild, wild west trying to find it, because we'll find ourselves right back in the same predicament if our businesses open back up and we do it in an unsafe manner that allows the virus to start spreading again. So again, thank you to Commissioner Warbington and those other entities, Sawega Rising, that have already been out there doing some of this work here in Albany so we can open back up safely. But can you talk about what can we require, or it just may be need to be a thing that that's the sentiment as we talk to people in the application process, is using that money to make their businesses safe.
You guys can certainly provide some guidance as it relates to that. Currently, the program is set up to help their bottom line, but we've not launched a program, so we can certainly incorporate what you're asking. I think you bring up a very good point. I sit on the United Way board, and one of the things that Surrego Wise, and they have really been doing great things as it relates to providing technical assistance to the small businesses. We approved last week for them to be able to, you talked about the PPEs. We approved for them to have funds so that they can provide the mask to the small businesses. So that is one way that we are able to merge with another resource to be sure that they're getting some of the resources that they need as it relates to some collaboration. But I think that if there's something specifically you want incorporated within the application process to make sure that they're opening safely, just let us know that, and we can certainly try and launch that before we actually put the application out live. I know
Yes, yeah, I would definitely like to do that because I showed up at one of my little favorite spots, and they didn't have anything going on PPE wise, no gloves, no masks, and that just really kind of scared me. So we definitely need to send that message out. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Young. Madam City Manager, do you want to speak on this issue?
I think everything has been covered. I think the requirement or the inclusion of practices to reopen to include the PPE that's required, or temperature thermometers and things like that is an excellent suggestion. And as they evaluate the applications when they come in, I think that would be one way to ensure that we help the businesses, and instead of giving them a handout, we give them a help up, so that it's not just, like you said, paying their past due bills, but also how do they position themselves for the future. The other thing I wanted to say is I believe that the way that community economic development will be reviewing the applications, I think there's going to be a period where they collect applications, and during that period, every application will be considered. So, it's not that somebody who didn't make it in day one, round one, gets left behind. I think they're going to look at all the applications received during an opening period, and then evaluate those and provide the resources to those that are most needed. And of course, we will be continuing to look for additional federal funding that can support this program. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this issue? Thank you, Ms. Gaskins. The next item is the a budget presentation. I think Mr. Brown will be responsible for that.
Good morning, Mayor. Actually, I present the budget, and then Derek will add on.
Okay.
At the end, and of course, we're open to your questions. So if you could go ahead and run the slides for me, please. So first of all, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to present the budget for fiscal 21. As you know, this is my budget presentation, and it's our proposed budget, which you will deliberate over. And keep moving the slides, please. And after your deliberation, ultimately you will adopt a budget. But I thought it was important to take a moment to honor those that we've lost through the COVID-19 crisis. As you know, there are 3 city employees that have been lost, and many of us have been impacted by family members and friends and colleagues that have been lost. So keep moving the slide along, please. I think it's important for us to be grateful for all that we have, especially for life and for health. We take so many things for granted, And during this budget process, as we looked, we were really thoughtful, and we actually had to go back to the drawing board and do it in a different way. So I'm very mindful that we are in this together. And that is a theme of our budget this year. While we may not be in the same boat, we are certainly facing the same storm. While we have different positions, we're still on the same team. And while we may have different perspectives, we still serve the same community. Next slide. As we move toward this budget, we can only speculate on the resulting effects of the pandemic. We've only gotten one indication from 1 month's worth of, and not even a full month, half a month's worth of receipts, sales tax receipts, and the reductions were very minimal. But of course, we really don't know the effect. But what we decided to do is to focus on your priorities. And as you recall, when you had your retreat, you made it clear that your highest priorities were public safety and blight, code enforcement, and recreation. And so even though this is a time of uncertainty, I feel confident that we are built for such a time as this. The budget, next slide. The budget is being presented and has assumed a revenue loss of 15% of sales tax in both LOST, SPLOST, and T-SPLOST. The fortunate thing for us is that we had been collecting sales tax, and we have accumulated a certain amount of sales tax in both SPLOST and T-SPLOST that have not yet been spent. And so you will see some very aggressive plans that we've incorporated in the budget. The biggest expense that we have included in the budget this year is an increase in police wages of 6%. That will put us at a higher wage than all of our surrounding competing jurisdictions, and that is for all policing personnel that are born in the police department at a non-senior management level. The non-policing personnel wage increase is at a CPI of 2.3%. There's an additional $600,000 in demolition, bringing that total to $1 million for demolition in fiscal 21. And something we haven't spoken to you about before that I'm actually very proud of is we are enhancing our home rehab program. And we have talked about it in general, but we haven't presented this part of the budget to you. But we are leveraging our HUD dollars with an additional $500,000 in general fund dollars. And what that will do is allow us to bring online 38 units that we own that are in need of rehab. Additionally, one of the things that you may not be aware of, you probably have seen these projects, but we actively engage and support low-income tax credit projects. And we have 3 that are currently being built in our city, 1 that has been approved for the next year. They haven't broken ground on yet, but those units, when complete, Dogwood Trails, Point North Village 3, and Woodlands will add 198 residential units, new units to our housing stock. And with our 38 and the 54 that are not yet started, within the next year, we could see as many as 290 new or rehabilitated housing units that are suitable for low and moderate income. So this is a program that we have incorporated, the rehab we've incorporated in the budget, something that you probably haven't heard about before, but we are very painfully aware of the housing challenges in our community. And then on SPLOST, as explained before, what we are trying to do is push out SPLOST projects that we've accumulated funding for. We think this is a good time to do it. These SPLOST and T-SPLOST projects are expected by our community. And as you know, SPLOST is a pay-as-you-go. We manage our SPLOST as a pay-as-you-go program. And now we've accumulated a certain amount of funding, and we're seeking your support to roll out quite a bit in SPLOST and T-SPLOST projects in fiscal 21. And we believe this is a great way for us to put money into our community, which ultimately will hire people and get these SPLOST and T-SPLOST projects done, which is the expectation of our community. So our citywide total budget for this fiscal year is $290,293,549. It is an increase of $1.97 million. The general fund is increased by 2.1. Special revenue funds are increased by 13.6, and enterprise funds are actually down by 13.7. The primary reduction in the airport funds is due to airport and transit do not have as many capital projects this year. And as explained before, the additional funding from the CARES Act is allowing us not to have to subsidize airport and transit for the first time probably ever. So we're very pleased to be able to have that additional funding that will create alleviate some pressure in the general fund budget. And as I said, the primary increase in the special revenue funds is the increase in SPLOST and T-SPLOST projects in the amount of $14.3 million. Next slide, please. As you know, our major sources of revenue for the general fund are transfers in, and this is it's reflected in your budget in brief as a net. We transfer funds in from the utility, and then we transfer funds out to the special funds that are in need of it. Property taxes account for $13.4 million. Sales tax, as we explained, we've projected in a 15% decrease. We will be honest, that is not a scientific reduction. You know, it is a bit of a swag, but we thought we would go with sort of our worst case scenario. And quite honestly, when June 30th rolls around, we'll be in a much better position to know what that decrease is going to be. The other thing we recognize is the decrease is not permanent. We'll see probably an initial hard hit, and then incrementally, we believe our sales tax will start to rise again. One of the things that really is going to help us is internet sales is going to be taxed at the local level beginning April 1st, which is a source of revenue that traditionally we've missed out on. Last year in the legislative session, we advocated, as well as GMA and everybody, for this, for the legislation to happen, and we were successful, along with many of our other states, in getting that passed. So in the sales tax on internet for local taxes, we should start to see that increase. And of course, with as much online purchasing as being done, the timing is just perfect for us. Governmental allocations, 12.3, licenses and fees, 10.5, and other taxes. We have not at this point projected any reduction in property taxes to say. What, if any, impacts are going to be? That really is a long-term proposition. And our major uses of expenses and the changes are pretty much what we outlined before. But in addition to police planning, we've increased by $370,000. Most of that is recoverable costs, and it's because we've seen an increase in permit activity, which is a great thing for us. You know, as I said, those projects just that I talked about before, these projects all generate additional permitting fees. It means that there's activity happening. You know, we don't really know if that activity will continue, but we do believe that we need to increase the budget and planning so that there's sufficient funding for possible additional permitting. And as I said, that is generally completely covered by their revenue. We have increased recreation. We don't know exactly when we're going to start programming, but we do believe within this fiscal year, we will be able to restart a robust programming for recreation. And we've also included some small equipment and other things that the recreation department needs in order to be able to provide robust programming. And facilities maintenance, we have a decrease for fiscal 21, and the technology department, some increases in operational costs. Next slide, please. We've already gone over this, and of course, everything will be subject to your questions at the end. Right following this presentation, we have a presentation for you on SPLOST and T-SPLOST. Other reductions are a reduction in R3M. As you know, repair, replace, and remodel is a fund that we started 5 years ago in order to be able to maintain our city facilities on an ongoing basis. We had some projects last year that we're not rebudgeting for this year. And of course, we have an anticipated reduction in our hotel motel. Next slide. And Mayor, earlier you asked about the revenues as it relates to transit. You'll see the 4.2 million for transit in grant revenue, the 1.5 for the airport. We do anticipate that there will be some additional support we will have to give to the Flint River Entertainment Complex, which is the Civic Center, the Municipal Auditorium, and the amphitheater. Obviously, their operations have been greatly hampered, and while they were on a really good trajectory to increase revenue, reduce expense, their expenses are down, but obviously their revenues are down. They expect to end this year very similar to last year, but next year is somewhat unpredictable. The other thing you will see is a decrease in vehicle maintenance on the transit side, because as you know, we were able to get rid of all the old diesel buses, and we've decreased their budget by 4.8 in capital because we have no bus replacements scheduled for fiscal 21. And the airport, we've decreased their capital budget by 6.2 because their runway projects are done. Next slide. On the Civic Center, some marginal increases. This is the utility budget, 161 million and 24,536. As expected, the cost of goods sold is our largest expense at 52% of the budget. That is our cost to purchase power from MEAG and our cost to purchase gas from MGAG, as well as some additional costs associated with provision of water. The transfers out account for 11% of that budget, and that is transfers to the general fund to support the general fund. That percentage has not changed. We've been very disciplined about keeping that by policy. We have a specific amount percentage-wise of the revenue from each utility fund that is transferred, and that is a consistent amount year over year. It's a little higher for electricity and gas and lower for some of the other funds. Our operating expenses account for 11% and our indirects 10%. Personnel costs are at 10%, and we have 6% depreciation. Most of you understand that, but I felt like it's important to say it on the record. The 6% depreciation is not cash, but it is a business, and so we have to depreciate our assets. Every asset that we own, whether in the ground, on the ground, rolling stock, a building, anything that is of the appropriate category has to be depreciated every year for the utility. And every time we buy new, we have to depreciate new, and the depreciation on new is much higher than the depreciation on something that is 20 years old. So you will see the depreciation number for the utility increase, particularly as we put new sewer pipes in the ground, or we replace our meters with AMI, street lights, anything new we buy for the utility, you will see that depreciation number increase. It's an accounting requirement, but it's not cash. And I don't mean to insult anybody, but I felt like it was important to say that on the record. Next slide, please. Our capital improvement program, this is across the board. What we did for the really tiny percentages of these, we put the percentages to the side for you because it became hard to read. A big part of this is the 28% is the largest component of that. You will recall that the fire trucks that we purchased in fiscal 20 are not able to be received in fiscal 20. So that purchase rolls over to fiscal 21. We have police cars in there. Solid waste and sewer are also have some very large capital projects that we are proposing for your consideration. A few of those we're able to fund with SPLOST, but a lot of it is going to be out of sewers capital, and that will be for your consideration at a slightly later date. Solid waste, we have equipment in there that is beyond its useful life. And, there's a detailed list of everything in the capital improvement plan, but that is everything from rolling stock to capital projects that are needed for the infrastructure. Next slide, please. And that concludes my part of the presentation. We look forward to your input. This is my proposed budget. There's a public hearing on June 2nd. A work session on June 2nd will require your input and any departments that you need to speak to or dial into directly. This morning, you will have received your 3-inch binder, which has every line item of the budget. It is extensive, and we expect to get your questions and your comments, and we are prepared to provide whatever information that you need to help you make an informed decision. More budget discussions on June 16th, and then at the regular meeting on the 23rd, that is the date we've scheduled for budget adoption. I couldn't conclude this presentation without thanking everybody that has participated. This has been an extraordinarily challenging budget season. We were probably 3/4 way through the budget and had to go back to the drawing board when the COVID crisis hit, and we recognized the impacts to the economic environment of our community. But this could not have been possible without Derek Brown and Michael Eaton and their team. For every department head who sat through hours and hours. And I especially want to recognize the PIO team, especially Jonathan, for helping us to take our budget and synthesize it down to the budget in brief, the budget workshop documentation that is in people speak, as I like to say, and makes it easy to read. There are some updates to the budget in brief that we have to make because we've made some changes after we sent it to the print shop. But we also know it's going to be changing again after you put in your input and we get to the end of the process. So at this time, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Derek for your questions. Both of us are subject to your questions.
Ms. Superdan.
Yes, sir.
How you doing again this morning?
I'm well.
Right. In this budget for 2021, and I see that we are asked for a 6% increase for the police position, those sworn individuals, which would cost $717,000. And for the other employees, it's probably 800, 900 some, that they're scheduled to get like a 2.3 COLA, cost of living raise. And is it possible that Derek could look at it doing like a 3% for all of the city employees?
We did look at that and we provided that information to you all by email. You know, I didn't really get much feedback. I'm a little nervous about going overboard given our current uncertainty as it relates to about our financial future. And so that perhaps is something that, you know, as a board, ultimately, this is the biggest policy decision. The budget is the biggest policy decision you make all year. And we'll do whatever you want us to do. We have calculated what the number would be, and we did share that with you. And you, Commissioner Howard, did respond to that email. You know, we can do whatever you think is best, but my recommendation is that we're more conservative at this point. And, you know, if things rebound nicely mid-year, we could just do something different. But that's my recommendation at this time.
Okay, and a follow-up question. The mayor had alluded to something that those city employees making over $90,000. Is it possible that we can get a list of those individuals? I'm going to say from $75,000 on up.
Yes, we can do that.
Across the board.
We can provide that to you.
Okay, and a follow-up question that the chief is not available, is it?
Everybody's available, sir. He can jump on. If you have a question,
I have a question for the chief.
Good morning, Mayor, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Good morning. Chief, good morning. How you do?
On you, sir.
Okay, let me ask you a question. In this proposed budget, we have like to give sworn officer 6% increase for position and adding some new individuals to the police department to expand the current invest in the police department. Since we've had a huge turnover in the number of years that I've been here, police officers that will go through the academy and then get trained, is there anything we can do to say that those individuals can sign a contract that if he or she leave within the 2-year time frame, that they will have to reimburse the city back?
That's state law, sir. Anyone who leaves the police department and they go to another law enforcement agency within the 2 years of them graduating the academy, then we send, with the help of Mr. Davis, we send notification to that law enforcement agency. The other part is if you do, that covers law enforcement. Now, just them leaving period within a 2-year period, just say they want to leave and go to Procter & Gamble. At that point, there's nothing that we have that will cover any loss expenses on it. So it can be discussed that regardless, having a contract, they have a contract with us, and 2 years upon graduating the academy, if they go anywhere, then whether law enforcement or not, it's something that we could discuss, sir.
And a follow-up question, if this budget passed with a 6% increase to the police department, what will you do different to help to suppress and run out of town some of these individuals that have undesirable activity in the community?
Well, that's going to take a collaborative effort. One thing that we noticed about a month ago is that jobs will become scarce. So through our recruitment team, we've already started working on some plans of how can we start attracting people into the department. For example, we have a lot of college for the state of Georgia. I do know the state is not going to do any major hiring for the next fiscal year because of their reduction. So we take this as an opportunity that those college graduates who would want to go to the GBI, to probation, parole, state patrol, whatever state agencies, then how do we start to go find them and recruit them? This would also be an opportunity that with the 6%, it could help on retention efforts for officers who might have thought about leaving, but because of the recent pandemic, that they may consider to stay, so it can help bolster our ranks. Those are just some things on the top, but then there are some other intangible things that we have to do that we've done about making sure that they get the good training they need, getting the better equipment to work with, and also helping expand on some opportunities. So this would just be it would be a force multiplier, and it could also be more enticing for other officers who are working at surrounding agencies that, may want to come to a bigger agency such as ours.
Okay, and these 6 new additions to individuals, where would they be utilized? In the police department, or just clerical individuals? What?
The biggest thing was that was going to be in our code enforcement area, that we wanted to beef that up. We still have positions that we're looking to fill, and we've been fortunate. I want to say we got about 200 applications for our next upcoming recruitment class. So with those positions, those will help bolster code enforcement in their efforts to clean up the city.
Okay.
Commissioner,
thank you, Chief. Yes.
Can I add on something?
Okay.
One of the things when we did the analysis on retention, we realized that we were losing a significant number of recruits during the training period. They met all the criteria, they passed the physical agility, they got into the academy, and we recognized that a large percentage of them were not making it through the academy. And we have created a partnership with Albany Technical College, which now they will provide instruction to our recruits as they go through the process. And Chief, you can speak to it further, but it will expand their opportunity to get a certificate and up to an associate's degree. But we believe that that additional support and that training for our recruits as they're going through the academy, or as part of their academy experience, will help them to be more successful.
Okay. And back to you again, Ms. Superintendent, let me ask you another question about the code enforcement. When this budget passed, is it going to have the code enforcement to be a separate standalone department from the police APD department?
We have put it in there as a department with a department head. The reporting structure will still be connected to the police department, because we believe that there's significant improvements to be gained by having that reporting structure still fall within the law enforcement section of our organization.
Would you care to elaborate on that a little more?
Yes, we do have a couple of departments that report to other departments. We call them the senior department heads. And we would treat this the same way. While code would have a department head, and it would be a department in every way, the reporting structure is that the department head would report to the police chief. That is a structure that I think works for us. We have it in HR, we have it in planning, and it has been effective. It helps with the span of control, and it keeps like departments together, and allows for greater synergy.
That's your opinion, but I am of the opinion is I think that the Public Service Commissioner would like for the code enforcement person to be in a department that stands alone, and not saying that he should report to the chief, but I think that we probably need to let that be a standalone department and they report to someone else. Not saying that the chief is not a perfect candidate, but I think that they just need to be a standalone department. That's it.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes, sir. Ms. Superintendent, you talked about the factoring in the 15% decrease in the sales tax, and I know you said y'all thought that was high side, but and I know there's no way to know for certain, but are we pretty confident that that's a safe number? Is it to err on the side of being conservative?
I believe it is, and Derek can weigh in. We looked at 3 years worth of trends. We are dealing with an unprecedented time, and we don't know what to expect. The truth is that early indications are surprising all of us. Things that you completely would not expect are happening, and so we felt like it was important to decide on a number, and we felt like that was a reasonable number. We have been in touch with the Department of Revenue. We've been on multiple phone calls and webinars. The state has made some pretty drastic cuts. Fortunately for us, we don't directly receive a lot of state funding. One of the things that we may see is a reduction in our paving program, LMIG. And if that happens, then we will bring an adjustment to you in fiscal 21 for paving. But fortunately for us, we do not receive a significant amount of state funding over and above sales tax. So, we could, I'm not really a betting person, and we could be off base, but, Derek and I conferred, we looked at the numbers, we scrubbed the numbers. Sales tax for our operating is a small percent of our overall budget. The fortunate thing for Albany is that we have a very diverse budget with multiple funding streams, and so it lessens our vulnerability. Other communities that are very reliant, or other governmental organizations that are very reliant on sales tax, are hurting really badly right now. Commissioner, we will be able to know more after June 30th, when we've received 2 more months of data, but the state law doesn't allow me to wait till July to present you with a budget. So I feel very good about it. Derek and I have conferred. We've looked at all of the data. We have talked to multiple people, and we're bringing you what we believe is the most prudent course of action. And we will be extraordinarily conservative with spending in the first quarter, and we will probably even initiate a soft hiring freeze, which is what we have now, where we're only filling mission critical positions like public safety and utility operations. And if we find that our projections are way off, then we will have to come back to you and say, our 15% was low. Here's how we think we can make the adjustments in order to weather the storm.
Okay, thank you. And then you mentioned April 1st, the online sales tax went into effect. Was that April 1st, 2020, or is that 2021?
April 1st, 2020. And so we receive our sales tax data 30 days in advance. So we have not yet seen what the impact is of that. So, May 31st, thereabout, maybe June 1st or 2nd, we will receive our April sales tax numbers, and then we'll have a better sense of what we're looking at. And then, of course, a month later, we'll have an even better sense.
Okay. Final question, not to beat a dead horse, but about, you mentioned that we were not estimating any decrease in our property tax revenue. I know that's not a big source of income for the city, but I can only, again, we're all speculating and at what would happen, but I can't imagine that we don't have some downtick in our paying of property taxes for this year coming up. Is that not something you think we ought to at least put in a little portion of a planned decrease there?
We can, as you know, property taxes are paid in December. So for this fiscal, there's no way, we have no data on what that looks like. I think, for us, we have no planned increase in our millage rate. If we keep our millage rate constant, but the valuation goes down, it is true that we could see a reduction. Again, we feel confident that between our reserve position is extremely strong. We can certainly implore, some austerity measures if we see that that's taking a crash in January. But at this point, it's even harder to predict than sales tax, because it's going to take a whole year, and the valuations are generally a whole year behind. So the truth is, we probably won't see the impacts of any reductions in valuation and or collections until 2022. So it's very hard to be able to predict. We could flag a number and put it in there. If that was the desire of the commission. I'm more comfortable saying let's stay the course, be conservative, and if we have to make a mid-year adjustment, then we can make a mid-year adjustment.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Am I muted?
No, I can hear you.
Yeah, let me interrupt before I go to Commissioner Fletcher. I need some clarification on this, the internet tax. It was my understanding that when the cases were litigated, the court held that, excuse me, sales tax was only required to be paid when the merchant had a physical presence in the state. Is that not the case, or is all internet transactions subject to taxation?
I think you are correct, sir. But what we recognize is that a lot of the internet sales, somewhere in the state, they have a physical presence. And so, again, we don't know what that's going to look like, but, even if it's a 1 or 2 or 3% increase, there ought to be some kind of an increase.
Okay. So I'm correct. Every internet purchase is not going to generate the sales tax revenue. It is only when the merchant has a physical presence in the state of Georgia.
That is correct. That's my understanding. But Nathan, do you have anything to?
Okay. So, okay. Thank you. Commissioner Fletcher.
Yes, sir. Nothing really to say. I think this is just a day-by-day situation. So my hat's off for even attempting to put together a budget during times like this. So thank everybody that was behind it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Warbington.
Yeah, first, I also wanted to say thanks, Sharon and Derek and all your staff. I know this is a huge activity for y'all, and I appreciate all the work y'all put into it. Just a couple of high-level questions. Under the new initiatives, the redundant fiber hut, can you explain what that is? I haven't heard that discussed at our retreat or anything. And then what kind of cost are we talking about for that?
That's one that I would like, if possible, for us to bring you more information at the next work session. As you know, our main fiber hut is in 207 Pine. It was built at a time when we had not expanded our fiber offerings as extensively as we have. We've also, while we have retained custody of that space and we have a unlimited access to it, we have disposed of the building. That's not our main reason for bringing this. Our main reason for bringing this is we believe that there should be building of redundant support to the fiber network. We are very interested in continuing to expand our fiber network throughout the city. And the more customers we have, the more vulnerable we are having one entry point. And so we believe that we at least need to look at the options for having redundancy. It is about $1 million, which is a lot to ask you all to consider at this time. And I think we did identify SPLOST funding that could be used for this. Is that correct, Derek?
Yes, about 2/3 of that amount is available in SPLOST funding with the potential of the entire amount, yes.
But I'd like to be able to have Stephen Carter bring you a full presentation on that at the next work session, if that's okay. But that's the overall general gist of it.
Okay, I guess I'm a little lukewarm on that, but that's a lot of money to be in the budget to be lukewarm about. So definitely look forward to further discussions.
Yes, sir.
The other, and this is almost a general comment, and this even applies to the mayor as the chairman of the utility board. One of the concerns I have as I look at the revenue is all the individual components of utilities have been increasing over the years in terms of their revenue. However, the light fund continues to decrease. Part of that is a function of our community. Just the load continues to decline. The challenge is with the cost of goods does not go down when revenue goes down because we have a committed amount. So maybe this is for more discussion, but I do think that's a continuing problem that's going to keep getting worse and worse if we don't either do something with MEAG on the cost of goods side, or we get aggressive in trying to recruit load to our system. When businesses, and not to discourage businesses from going to Northwest Albany, but Northwest Albany is Georgia Power. And so you come south a little bit to where Darton, Albany State, McDonald's, that corridor, when we have growth there, that's immediate load to our utilities. So anyway, I guess that's just a concern. I just see that as continuing to be a problem and an opportunity for us. And I think even the mayor, has proposed something on the utility board for a consultant or some help in that realm. So I think that's something we need to look at in more detail. Another clarification. Okay, so when I look at total capital, it's 19.2. When I looked at last year's budget, the total capital was 32.6. Is that, I know some of the capital will move forward because it wasn't spent, but is that a true reduction in capital, or is, I'm just trying to understand that large amount of change.
Sure. So you're warm, not hot. So a couple of things. One of them, we did discover that the budget in brief has an error. And that's why I said to you, we have to update the budget in brief. We did catch an error after it went to print, and the capital amount is a little different. But it is significantly reduced from last year. If you recall, the bus purchase, I believe, was 4.8 million. That will not be continued. That's a one-time cost, so that doesn't happen again in fiscal 21. And we expended a considerable amount at the airport, I think 6.2 at the airport, and that doesn't continue year over year. So even when projects are grant funded, and we only capture the match, we budget for the entire amount because we have to have the authority to spend, even if it's federal money. And so you will see that big reduction in capital was because we no longer have the airport and transit projects that will carry over into fiscal 21. But we also did catch, I think, a $600,000 error in the budget in brief. It was correct in your presentation this morning. It is correct in your official budget book, but there was an error in the budget in brief, which we will correct that. We've already corrected the online version.
Okay. And my last question, and this may be getting in the weeds a little bit, but pension liability. I know that's something that just kind of goes on in the background. It's not really out in front, but it's something that's important. But just a little bit of research I was doing, it looks like our liability, is it growing or has grown, or what's the status of the pension liability?
Well, Derek is the chair of the pension board. And so I wouldn't want to speak for them. I think you know that the pension is not part of our operating or capital budget. We do have an unfunded liability, as does every pension plan, defined benefit pension plan. The state does govern how many years out and what percentage we're allowed to have. We're still, as of the last reporting period, we were still within that window. We are concerned. The pension fund lost millions with the dip in the stock market. In April, it rebounded 50% of that. And so we can give you more information, and I'll have Derek go ahead and pick up. He probably has the exact numbers available.
No, not the exact number, but I mean, we have, Commissioner Warren, have taken some steps in the recent years. I think the board has approved a couple of increases for the city. Last year it was 1.1%. A couple of years prior to that, it was a 2% increase. So we've gone from 11% matching with the city for public safety employees, 15%. We've gone from 8 to 9% contributions for government employees up to 12%. So we've taken some steps. We've been reduced our discount rate from 8% to 7 3/4. Smoothing period we reduced from 10 years to 5-year smoothing. So we've done some incremental things over the years. Will it be enough going forward long term? That's something we're constantly taking a look at. And as Ms. Sulan mentioned, the fund has rebounded. It has gone from about 118 million down to about 90 million, back up to 109 million as of yesterday. So there's some huge swings. Of course, we take a long-term approach, but we do evaluation every other year as required by the state, trying to make sure we stay within that 30-year range. And matter of fact, the last improvements that we made or changes we made were out of concern of getting close to that 30-year period. I think our initial, the most recent evaluation we did before that had us at 28 years. So of course we were concerned about that. And so the changes we put in place did get us back down to 25 years. So it's something we're constantly looking at, and whether it's additional contributions or whatever the options are, we'll definitely bring those back to the board in a timely manner when that needs to be done. But we're definitely mindful of that. Definitely something we're keeping a close eye on.
Okay, that's all I got, Mayor. Thank y'all.
Commissioner Langstaff? Yeah, this is a follow-up to what John was asking about code enforcement. I just got a question for Nathan to see if he's formed an opinion yet. I'd asked him this in an email in the past about whether or not he thinks the charter requires code enforcement to be a standalone department. And I guess based on what we heard today, does the charter prohibit, if that is the case, does it prohibit that department from reporting to another department, or however the city manager has it proposed in the budget?
Good morning.
Morning.
I've done some research. I'm in the process of responding to your email. I don't see that the charter when referred to the events when it was in effect substituted for what used to be the, I believe the marshal required or intended it to be a separate department. But again, that's your prerogative as the commissioners if you want to designate it as a separate department. And answer to your second question is no, y'all can designate it and however you want to as separate, and then the city manager, can, with your concurrence, have a reporting system that'll benefit her overall operation at the city. Thank you.
And I guess, we'll look forward to getting your final opinion after you finish your research, but I guess we just need to know what the legal status quo should be right now if we don't take any further action, I guess, But anyway, that's all I've got.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Young?
Yes, sir. Madam City Manager, I guess the only question I really have in terms of the budget is where, I guess, do you have a item in here where we're kind of pursuing some futurization of government services and some things like the initiatives that we've been talking about in terms of solar energy, EV stations, things like that, because I think that's important to include in our budget as we go forward. That we're in my estimation are behind on a lot of things in terms of technology and behind in some initiatives like solar energy as well. And I just wanted to see that kind of reflected in the budget, that we are, utilizing some of our resources to pursue those initiatives.
In terms of EV, the utility board will hear a presentation on our findings, and we fully think that there's opportunity to put in stations. We want the utility board to weigh in on kind of where and how many. So we're ready to do that, and there's sufficient funding in the budget to be able to do that. In terms of solar energy, it's a bit more complicated. I think Commissioner Warbington and the mayor have made it clear that we need to pursue different directions. I have some ideas on how we could incorporate some changes as it relates to how we procure our energy, but we don't really have a ready way right now to deal with our MEAG contracts. The good news is that there are a couple of, it's not a big number, but the good news is that there are a couple of debt service projects with MEAG that are rolling off in the next 5 to 10 years. Our cost of goods sold did go down marginally this year, but as Commissioner Warbington pointed out, our load went down as well. Part of that is across the system. People are more energy efficient. They buy newer appliances. Businesses especially are very conscious of their energy use, and so they're reducing their load. The challenge we have with these fixed contracts is we're not able to commensurately reduce our fixed cost. So, I guess I would like for you all to have confidence that, between the utility board, business development, and staff, we are looking at and have some ideas on things that could be done. And then there's a much broader legal argument that the mayor has spoken to and that Commissioner Warbington has talked about. And, what does that all mean? Not just with our current obligations to MEAG, but our future obligations. So, we're really not in a position right now to go out and purchase or build solar because we have a diminishing, because our usage is diminishing and we're excess. We have more power than we are able to sell. But as a staff, there are some ideas that we have that we would like to explore and discuss, and they may allow us to see some reductions. And of course, we are always very competitive when industry comes that is in the customer choice realm, that we're able to compete with Georgia Power. We certainly try to gain business to increase our customer base.
Okay, yes, ma'am. Well, and the reason I was talking about that is because as you know, we have a what I think is becoming a disproportionate amount of pressure on ratepayers and normally poor ratepayers to support the city budget. And I'm looking at, a lot of things in the news about the state cutting their budget at certain levels, or having to cut their budget at certain levels. And, at what point are we kind of, tightening our belt, at the city level, so we're not always, kind of dependent upon the resources coming in from people paying high utility bills to, kind of, run the city. And, I try to, I think as others on this commission have tried to look at other initiatives to kind of say, okay, we need to go in this way so we can make more headway in terms of reducing that load on ratepayers. And I think that's just going to have to come in terms of, solar initiatives, EV initiatives. But, and I get it. We want to, keep that revenue coming in, but we can't keep doing it at the cost to our citizens. But if you would, what is, I guess, the city's, I guess the question would be, what is the city's position in terms of, finding places to cut the budget? I don't know what the state's rationale for the cuts that they've outlined, but where do we stand in that particular point?
Well, what we've done is, and department heads will tell you, we go through every budget and pretty much every line item in every budget, and scrutinize those things that are controllable costs, fungible costs, in order to reduce incrementally and to offset, increases in personnel costs. Personnel costs were a big increase this year. Because of the initiatives that you directed. And so we tried to balance that. We certainly look for more effective and efficient ways to do business. And that is everything from automation of processes to elimination of waste. I don't really believe philosophically in, just random across the board cuts. I think, the budget has to be treated with a scalpel, not an axe. It is a complex budget, and, certain departments are able to generate revenue, sometimes revenue from outside our city. And so we need to be careful where we make the cuts. Ratepayers are paying less. On the electric side, we're down millions of dollars on the electric side. The hot months are coming, and there will be complaints about high energy bills, as we have them every year. One of the things that we've done this year is to increase weatherization, and we already have a list of homeowners who qualify for weatherization projects, and as I said earlier, with the housing initiative, those are also going to be weatherized units, and all the new units coming on board will be energy efficient, which is great for the occupant. But the reality is, it means that our usage will go down even more. So it is a balance. It's a double-edged sword. Having the ability, having a utility to help to offset the cost of the general fund allows us to continue to have a considerable public safety presence in this community, because 26% of the general fund is coming from the utility. If that were to be drastically cut, it would mean that we would have to make drastic cuts in those areas, and those drastic cuts would result in cuts to service delivery, which is inconsistent with the direction that I think that this board is going in. But I certainly think that, we have been diligent in looking for efficiencies. On the utility side, I think when AMI is fully implemented it is a big capital cost, and it will have a carrying cost. It's, no technology is free, as you well know. There is a carrying cost to technology, but we also do think that there are some significant efficiency we will see with some of those new initiatives as well, which reduces our cost across the board.
Okay, and my last question is, and I guess it's maybe a question for the chief, with the increase in the pay for police. I know we're trying to attract more officers. Again, the question is, what are the benchmarks that we're trying to look at, or do we have benchmarks in terms of what we're trying to achieve with the pay raise?
One of the things, sir, is when we talk about the manpower of the department, is that though the goal is to get to be fully staffed of my total of 214, what is a reasonable number that we're able to sustain? In my opinion, if I'm able to sustain 190 personnel, that's from patrolman all excuse me, all the way up to my position, that there's a good amount of things that we can do in the community. So that's the recruitment and the retention part of it. The other part of the benchmark is, and this is part of our CALEA and other state requirements, is that when we look back, as we do surveys in the community, we look back on the perception of the department. So how does that relate? Well, I don't believe in just hiring anybody, because if you hire anybody, you hire lawsuits. So if we're able to have a competitive package, then we can continue to work to find some good people to come in to serve the community and help and even retain officers who we put time and investment in. So the short end of it is to get to a comparable number that we can sustain. And then the long term is the perception that the community has of the department.
Okay, thank you, Chief. I'm done, Mayor. Thank you.
Mayor's muted.
Hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Chief, I find that somewhat disconcerting. So we have 214 budgeted positions, but you feel you're fully staffed at 190.
No, sir. When you no, what would be manageable is 190. If you talk about having to deal with, you're still going to have attrition. You're going to have retirements. You're going to have people who don't make it. So what's a manageable number that we could provide an adequate service? It would be great to get to 214, but to be realistic about, we still have to manage the attrition. I feel as though 190 would be a good manageable number. While I'm not stopping at 190, trust me. But if we want to maintain some good service here and have be able to staff our specialized units and to still have presence throughout the community, if we were able to maintain 190 while still trying to get to 214, yes, sir, that's one of the goals. But I do want to be fully staffed, and that's not including, I don't want fully staffed to be, we're counting people who are in the academy, because they can't help us until they get out. I'm talking about, we have minimum number of people in the academy, have way more people out here working on the streets.
Okay. I mean, it took me 4 or 5 years to understand what was going on. Sort of a budget ploy. I felt for years and years, we would have, I don't know if it was 925 positions or 1,000 positions, but a lot of vacant positions never got filled. And so that was extra money. On this Albany Police Department presentation, it talks about representatives from the Center for Public Safety Management, LLC. What is that?
That is one of the companies, sir, when you want an assessment of the police department, that's one of the companies that was that we looked at doing the assessment. We have the RFP that will be going out this week. I do know we have at least 3 vendors who will be courting to come in to do the assessment.
Okay. I was concerned. It looked like somebody had already hired somebody, and I didn't know if I had missed that meeting or something.
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. My feeling, notwithstanding whatever opinion the city attorney has, I think code enforcement needs to be a separate department. I mean, it says it right there in the charter, but it also says that code enforcement should be subject to the direction of the city commission. And if we are going to undertake this increased, more aggressive demolition schedule, I believe we need to have somebody who can come to us and make the presentations and answer any questions we might have. That's just my personal feeling, and certainly whatever concerns there are, that code enforcement needs to work hand in hand with the police department. I don't see a problem with that if code enforcement was outside the police department. But next item, Madam City Manager, is this 2.3% increase? Is that for all employees, or are we excluding the employees over $90,000?
In the proposed budget, it's for everybody.
Okay. I'm unequivocally against that. Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
I didn't get clear direction I only got a response from yourself and one, well, you made your position clear, and I got a response from one other commissioner. And so this is my proposal, and I fully expect that you will, as a commission, give us direction on, is it 75,000, the threshold? Is it 90? Is it 3%? Is it 2.3%? Is it 0? So, this is my proposed budget, and I expect you to, as a collective, give us direction on which one of the variables you'd like us to follow, and we will follow suit.
Okay, I'm not going to vote for a budget where people are making $90,000 and over going to get the same raise that people on the front line are. I'm just going to tell you that. Can I get this number? And if you need some direction, we can take a poll if that's what we want to do. But if we gave everybody that made under $90,000 a year a 2.5% raise? Can we get that number?
Yes, sir. We emailed that to you. I think Derek probably has it handy.
Okay, let's get it right now, if we could.
What was the amount, Mayor? You say the 2.5%?
Yes, sir. For everybody under 90.
Yes, the current amount that's in the budget now is $1,042,000 as proposed. If we removed the people, well, I think at the time we did 2.5%, excluding that. Make sure I got this right now. If we went up to 2.5% and excluded anybody making over 90,000, it would increase the current budget by $75,000.
Okay, that's what I think is most equitable, and that's what I would support. If you want to take a poll, we can do that right now. You want to do that if we want some direction?
Yes, sir.
Because all right, Commissioner Howard, my proposal is that there be a 2.5% raise for all employees making less than $90,000, and those employees making over $90,000 would not receive a pay increase. Would you support that? You can?
He's muted.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Commissioner Howard said he can support it. Commissioner Fuller?
I want to look further, reading some of the budget numbers. I think, to me, I'm concerned with we've had the stimulus money that's been in play over the last, month. I'm still a little concerned about just our overall budget for this year. So I'm looking a little further into that before I commit either way.
Okay, we appreciate it. And obviously, I think we all need a little more information. As Commissioner Fuller said, this is sort of manna from heaven, the CARES funding for the transit system and the airport, but we need to understand that's be several million dollars that we're going to have to come up with after that money is expended. Okay, next, Commissioner Fletcher. The proposal is a 2.5% raise for all employees making under $90,000 with no pay increase for employees making over $90,000. Would you support that?
Right now, going into this year, I said I really wanted to take serious the salaries of the police officers. I don't think the number that we're looking at is what we discussed at the retreat. So I would like to take a discussion a little further before I move with this. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Warrington?
I would say I'm on the fence. I hadn't got the details. I mean, this has been a great presentation.
Okay.
So I'm neutral at the moment.
So we got 3 question marks. Commissioner Langstaff.
I did it. Ditto what Commissioner Worthington said.
Okay, 4 question marks. Commissioner Young.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. I did have a question. I mean, I did have a conversation with a staff member. It wasn't directly with the city manager, but what the number we discussed was 3%, and I think we did have some discussion about cutting that raise off at 90%, or at least that's what I got sent. But no, I didn't, necessarily tie myself to that, but I can go with the recommendation that the mayor has put on for the 2.5% with the cutoff at 90%.
So that's 3 yeses and 4 maybes. All right. Okay. Okay, I had some notes, but I can't find them. So I appreciate it. It's very informative. I appreciate the time that was required to provide all this information and generate the budget. With that, City Manager, anything else you need to?
No, I look forward to more discussions. And if you want me to call you with additional questions, or you want to set up time for us to go through questions so we can be prepared for the June 2nd. And, at any point, whatever you decide, even if you decided on the night of the adoption of the budget, we can make the change. So we know exactly what the options were. I will resend that in email to you. And Commissioner Howard, we will generate another one at a cutoff of 75,000. And just to be clear, we go up to $81,999, and we will go up to $74,999. And we'll go ahead and give you that information again, and maybe that'll help you with your decision making. And Commissioner Fletcher, I'll also call you to see if there was something that we missed from the retreat. I thought we covered it, but I'll call you offline in case there was something that we missed. But thank you all very much for your kind words, and we look forward to this time of year and look forward to your input. Thank you.
Well, can I ask Commissioner Fletcher? I mean, I'd forgotten about that. There was, I think she made a statement that this is not what we agreed on at the retreat. I don't.
Well, it wasn't as much as what we agreed on. We were just throwing around some figures and looking at other counties, which I think that I saw in these reports that we're compatible with a lot of counties. But I just know that the number was 40,000 plus. I distinctly remember that number. Now, I'm not saying that we agreed to that, but to me, I almost look at it as a realtor. If you want to buy a $999,000 home, you're not going to look at 100,000. And if you want to raise, 40 sounds better than 39,999. But I'll go back through my notes. I do have some of that, but I don't know, with everything we're going through and with the trend of everything that's going to be happening, I truly believe that we're fixing to look at crime go as fast as COVID-19 goes up. And we got to be prepared to put the best men and women on the street. Thank you.
Mayor, can I say something real quick?
Sure, Commissioner Young.
Yeah, I was trying to remember. I know the chart that got sent, it seemed like it put us in a comparable level with the other cities around. Was there just some discussion as in terms of putting us on top of that level with the police pay?
Well, I can't speak to that, Commissioner Young. Like I say, I have a better understanding now that Commissioner Fletcher said that. I thought she was referring to, we had agreed to a specific figure, and I think we all concurred we have to be competitive. And with that, I think there was a consensus that there had to be some increase. And but we'll let Commissioner Fletcher go back through her notes and talk to the city manager about it and whatever her concern was. But I certainly, that was my confusion. I was thinking that Commissioner Fletcher said we had made a specific commitment or come to an agreement, and I think that's been clarified now. But
can I respond to Commissioner?
Yes, ma'am.
It puts us above everybody but Columbus. Right. And the email was sent to you on, I can send it again. I'll send this. It was sent on Tuesday, May 12th. But we'll send it again along with the other pay information that you requested.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else, Madam City Manager?
No, that's it, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, Ms. Hicks. Okay. Is Mr. Brown or Ms. Subadan speaking to this?
I'm going to ask Mr. Brown to speak to SPLOST and T-SPLOST.
Hey, good morning, everyone, again. This item is to take a look at where we are with SPLOST and T-SPLOST, where we started with our original resolutions, referendum items, and where we think we may end up as far as reduction in collections, at least for this next 15-month period, and what our proposals are. So if you look at this slide here, it really gives us what our current balances are. As of the end of March, for SPLOST 7, it was 10.1 million. For T-SPLOST, we accumulated 7 million. And so that's where we were at the end of March. And so as we projected over the next 15 months, the remaining months of this fiscal year and on through fiscal 21, we anticipate collections of 11.1 million in SPLOST 7, $10.8 million in T-SPLOST, for available funding of 21.3 in SPLOST 7 and $17.9 million available in T-SPLOST. And so what we're proposing this morning, or are proposing, is a potential budget for both items: 19.9 for SPLOST 7, 13, just under 14 million for T-SPLOST, leaving a small balance available at the end of the fiscal year based on the numbers we projected. Next slide, please. And so this probably looks very familiar to everyone. When this was on the referendum, this is what the SPLOST 7 referendum anticipated, and that's a total of $59.2 million. And we have here listed are the major projects, or the projects that were voted on and that were approved at that time. Next slide, please. A 15% reduction comes to just under 2 million. So we just rounded to 2 million. And so we looked at a couple of line items that we could potentially take those dollars from. The biggest one was alley paving. We've spent $124,000. You see item number 2. I went to that one first because it's the bigger number. But item 2 is alley paving. That's what we've spent in SPLOST 7 monies up to this point, that $124,000. And so this proposal would take the remaining of those dollars and not spend it on alley paving, presuming if we do fall $2 million short. And because we have a similar category in T-SPLOST, any alley paving would be done with T-SPLOST dollars instead. And then the remaining $124,000, we would propose reducing the P25 radio amount by that, because we do get some offsetting reimbursements from some of our partners via the county and the university. So we're proposing that small decrease that was left would be an ideal place to take that remaining amount from to come up with our $2 million. Next slide, please. And so what we have here shows the amended, if we reduce our projects by $2 million, what that amended project list would look like in the amounts. And so only those two items were impacted. We also show what we have either spent through the end of this fiscal year, in addition to what has already been committed in the following fiscal year. So for instance, just looking at the P25, we've actually on a 4-year payment plan. So with Motorola for that. So we know we're gonna spend really the remaining of those funds next year. We'll make our 3rd payment this June. We'll make the 4th payment next year. That will exhaust those funds. Item 2, the street resurfacing, as you recall, that was approved by the board a few weeks ago. And so that would exhaust that $10 million. Item 3, the alley paving was committed in 2019, but as we just discussed in the previous slide, that would exhaust, if this is accepted, then that will be exhausted. That $124,000, that category will be exhausted altogether. There was a commitment to crushed asphalt in January of last year. And so that $1 million that was committed then, we're showing here as a committed expenditure through the end of this fiscal year. Under sidewalks, there was a plan in 2018 for this $42.5 million sidewalk plan. Here we're proposing to spend $1.5 million out of this funding source, and we'll see later that we're going to propose $1 million out of T-SPLOST later on. Streetscapes, that was on actually in a budget presentation on an agenda item recently. And $170,000 here is our commitment for our matching portion for the TAP grant, and that was approved just last month. Item 7, the Interceptor Sewer project is committed. That is our debt payment on the GFA loan. We do have a chunk of it in SPLOST 6 allocated, but this has also been committed for the GFA loan. And then item 8, the EDA grant for the Sandy Bottom Circuit. We've got about a $3 million commitment already there for our matching portion. Plus we've already spent about $480,000. So really that entire $3.5 million for that category is committed already. And so the right column just sort of shows what would be left after reducing the budget to 57.2, the monies that we have already spent, plus what has already been allocated and or committed, then we will have an available balance for future projects of $24.5 million. Next slide, please. So here, what we're proposing is based on the priorities that we have gotten from the board, is a reallocation of some funding, funds that are on the referendum. The primary one is recreation. As we've sort of discussed already, there's been some CARES Act funding identified for the airport. And so the original airport amount was $2.3 million. We are proposing reducing that by $1.3 million and moving that 1.3 up to the recreation category. And so that would increase that budget by 1.3 million. The second thing that we're proposing, item 3 you see there, is we had previously in some early discussions with trying to come up with our proposals before the CARES Act and just before a lot of these things happened, we were planning to spend $652,000 this year in traffic signal upgrades and $200,000 next year rather, in sign upgrades. Well, we have a category in T-Splosh that we believe could fit that. And so the money that we were planning to spend in fiscal 21 in these two categories, we're proposing reducing those two categories by the combined total of $852,000 and moving those funds also to the recreation category. And so that would increase our recreation category from $3.9 million to just over $6 million. And a final thing that we're also proposing is the reduction of some expenditures that have happened this year under the recreation category for the Downtown Connector Trail, which was approved as a SPLOST 7 project, had a price tag of about $2.5 million with our contractor. And we spent a significant portion in the previous fiscal year, and we've spent right now around $900,000 this year. And so with this, we're proposing that we transfer $900,000 of those expenditures this year to the multipurpose trail category in T-Splosh. So instead of actually increasing the recreation budget even though we're actually only reducing it $2.1 million for $6 million, but we have an opportunity to actually reduce the expenditures this year by $900,000. So actually enhancing the opportunity in the recreation category of about $3 million with the proposed movement of this $900,000. Next slide, please. And so if those proposals or those recommendations are accepted, then our proposed budget for SPLOST 7 next year would be $19.9 million. And you see the different categories there. We mentioned the P25 annual payment, which would be due. Possibility, I know there have been some discussions already about Fire Station 2. We would propose in our upcoming budget that every dime we got in it at recreation, we would try to spend it. I know the board has already approved, I think tentatively, if not actually, the 2 new gyms, but and I know I think an RFP is in the works for Carver Park. And so whatever recreation improvements are approved by the board, we propose putting all of that in next year's budget, along with the money there for Carver Pool. Street resurfacing has already been approved. We're proposing the $500,000 for crushed asphalt. We mentioned the sidewalks, that 1.5 of the original $2.5 million plan, the streetscapes, and you just see the other items that are mentioned here. There are also some shovel-rated projects under the storm sewer outfall improvements. I think East Broad, I think one may be 3 Oaks. I may have those names off, but there are some shovel-rated projects that we're proposing in this budget, continuing the streetlight upgrades that we've started with the LED, and then the portion of the EDA grant. I think we committed to a 10% part of that, and so for this fiscal year, and so that would be our portion of that we believe we can get done in fiscal 21. So this would be the proposed SPLOST 7 budget, contingent on reallocation of those dollars from the previous slide. Next slide, please. So we did something similar with T-Splosh. This is the original referendum item, totaling $53.6 million option. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. And so we did a similar exercise, sort of a $2 million reduction. And so we went through tried to come up with our $2 million, those that really could afford it, if you will. And I guess, and this is obviously subject to your approval, but you can see the items that we reduced: $300,000 in 6 different categories and $100,000 in 2 other categories to come up with our $2 million reduction and the proposed amended budget if those collections fall $2 million short. Next slide, please. And so what we show here is similar to the other slide, things that we have already committed to or have spent. And for the most part, this one is committed to. We spent minimum dollars here. And so the phase 3 street resurfacing, this is the amount that would come from, this is item 1 from T-SPLOST. Item 2 is the matching portion of the bill grant, should we get that. And I think that's the one Mr. Forgy mentioned a couple of meetings ago, it may have been the last meeting, but this, if we're approved, this would be our commitment to match that amount. Alley paving, $1.8 million. This is the amount that we would have had in SPLOST 7, but because of potential reduced revenues, we would move those dollars to spend over here because we do have that category in T-SPLOST. Number 4, that's the $900,000. If approved, that we would reclassify those expenses from SPLOST 7 to T-SPLOST. We've actually spent $125,000 will by the end of this fiscal year in railroad crossing improvements. So that's why that's the only cumulative expenditure we have here. And then item 5 is the matching portion of the GDOT grant. And so we have that highlighted as what we are committed to. So taking these items out of what we've committed would leave a available funding of $42 million over the life of T-SPLOST. Next slide. And so the proposed budgeting, that was a number the city manager had in her initial presentation, is 13.9, just under $14 million. And so pretty much all of the items we mentioned on the previous slide, the roadway improvements, the bill grant match, we mentioned the alley paving. This is the additional, it was 1.8 from SPLOST 7, but this is also the additional $1 million of the $2.5 million alley paving program that was approved back in 2018. The multi-purpose trail for next year would be our portion of the connected trail to the county line. We believe this is what our cost would be. And so we have that proposed for next year. We have some money in for one unpaved street, railroad crossing improvements, intersection, that's $500,000 to engineer the improvements of 3 intersections. And then item 6, we mentioned the $2 million GDOT grant. And then if you recall, the reallocation of dollars in SPLOST 7, that $852,000 shows up here is what we would propose to do those traffic signal upgrades and pedestrian upgrades here in T-SPLOST. And that makes up the 13.9 total proposed budget for T-SPLOST next year. And I think the next slide may just be, maybe blank, maybe just for questions, if you have any questions for me.
Mr. Howard?
Derek.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, how you doing?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
Okay, where this $13 million where you say unpaved streets, $250,000, do you have those streets that will be is unpaved street?
That was one that I think we have a total of 4 that we are planning to do under T-SPLOST. This one is, and I don't know if Mr. Stock is on. I didn't write that one down. Or Stacy may be on as well. If you all recall which street that was, it was, and I would.
Derek, I'm here. It's Avery off of Penn.
Okay.
Avery, yes. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay. Okay. That's it, Mayor.
Okay. Commissioner Fuller?
Yes, sir. What was the 1.5 for street light improvement? What exactly, and that might not be a Derek question, but what exactly would that be going to?
Ken Stock is on. He can jump on and finish up. But as you recall, we have some underground. I think we have right now about 110 remaining lights that are not functional. And so we want to, most of that is underground. And then a number of you have indicated that you're interested in additional lights. So my commitment was, once we were done and we knew we had all existing lights working, we would talk to each of you and do some engineering to see the cost associated with infill lights. I wanted to make sure that we took care of everything that we had existing before we added anything. But we're really close. Ken and his team have done a great job, and Jimmy, and we're really close to getting everything working, all the underground repaired. And then what we'd like to do is and I know some of you have been keeping a running list because you've hit me up numerous times, and I've promised that we will get back to you on that. So Ken, do you have anything to add?
No, ma'am, I think you covered that perfectly. I mean, that states exactly what we've got going on. Have made some significant progress from where we started, a couple, 2-3 months ago. And I'm proud of what the guys have been able to accomplish. We got a little bit left. Of course, it's all it's most of the tricky ones, but that's what we got left. And then of course we want to add in anything additional that's required.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Mr. Fletcher?
Do we have a date on possible completion of the 110 that I think you said 110 lights that needed repairing? Do we have a date, Ken, on, I mean, I know I can't stick you to a date, but a time frame of when we think we'll have 100% completion on this project?
That is a little bit difficult, Commissioner. Like I said, the ones that are remaining are the ones that are a little bit more tricky in some areas that are a little bit more congested as far as trying to get the boring equipment in. I hate to throw a time frame out there and disappoint you, but I hope we can get it done, as soon as possible.
Well, the reason I asked that, it just seems like most of the areas that are remaining dark is the ones where we have, high crime and a lot of mischief going on. So, okay, thank you, sir. That's it.
Commissioner Langstaff?
Oh, skip me.
Oh, Commissioner Warmington.
4 comes after 3.
Unless you're going by odd numbers only.
I guess for me, I cannot support any reduction in alley paving. That would be for SPLOST 7, reducing it by 1.8, or it's reducing. You're just kind of moving it over. So in a sense, you're reducing the amount of paving that'll be done. So I would like options to keep alley paving as it is, and of course, I could go through the whole list of all the 20 items on there. I would like, in terms of a commissioner, that is one of the top phone calls, text messages, whatever conversations with constituents is about alleys. And I would not be a representative of my constituents if I allowed the alley paving to be cut. So I would just like options on how not to do that. My other question. So the 4.4, and we can't go dollar for dollar, but the 4.4 million that we're wanting to spend on recreation, what are the main buckets? Like, I know we just approved a couple, or we're looking at approving some gym renovations around 1 million and something, but what's the lion's share of the other 3 million or so? What are we talking about for recreation?
We actually have not designated that yet. So many ideas have been floated, and I know the mayor wanted us to get the study done for Carver. So we wanted to set the funding aside, and then you would have options. Once we know kind of what Carver would be, if that's your desire, or you want, you may not want to do all, you may want to do some. We've heard interest in first tee, we've heard interest in outdoor basketball. And so we wanted to create some opportunity for you to have options, but we have not at this point. The only thing we've really committed to is Bill Miller and Henderson. It sounds like you're interested in doing the front entrance. And so we have that, those plans ready that we could do a design build on that. They will have to re-engineer it because the terrain and the topography is different. than Thornton. We don't quite know what the cost would be. But if that's your desire, we're prepared to go out to bid on that. And you probably want to consider that's probably $500,000 total for the two, additional to the 900,000. And then we put the trail in a different category in T-Splost. And it looks like we need to up that number on the the rail trail as well. And I need to get a clarification from Nathan on something on that piece also. But we're leaving it open because it sounds like you have a lot of interest in recreation, and we didn't know quite which direction you wanted to go in.
Yeah, I would just submit as a commission, maybe this is on our next agenda work session, is we kind of need to agree to the large sections of that amount of money. So maybe if everything you just described, if we can get that and whatever's left, and if there's some polls, I would like to give the mayor props. I don't know if any of you have read the 2006 Recreation Master Plan that he requested, and I know staff there's some good information, in my personal opinion. There were some good things identified in that master plan. It's very unfortunate that we're sitting here 14 years later and a lot in that master plan was not executed. Of course, now 2020, some of the trends are not the same in terms of recreation and all that it was in 2006, but there were some good things in that document, I think, that we can apply. So thank you, Mayor. That was a very good document. One other question for T-Splosh, it says traffic calming devices 0. Are we not open for any traffic calming work next year?
Well, we don't have any planned, but that's why this is my proposed budget. If you are wanting, we have some that are in the pipeline this year. If you want us to add, tell us how much we can add. You want us to add, but we didn't have anything in the pipeline right now. I'm just looking at it. Yeah.
I think there's one on our agenda for Wexford, I believe.
It is.
Okay.
That we expect will be done this fiscal.
I know my own ward, I probably have 4 or 5 studies that have been started. Actually mailed out some petitions yesterday for a street. So there's some activity happening in my ward. So yeah, 20,000, 30,000 might be just a good budget number to have in there for what probably will be happening for that category. So, okay, that's it. Thanks.
Commissioner Langstaff.
No questions at this time.
Commissioner Young.
Oh, yes, sir. I had some of the same comments that Commissioner Worthington had. Of course, there's not one speed table or anything like that in my ward, and I have had some constituents call about speed tables. I hope Mr. Worthington still is offering to reallocate some of his speed tables that may be in the wrong place, as he offered once before over in Ward 6. And then I had I'm trying to go back. I had a question in terms of the sidewalk projects. Now, again, it just seems like this whole process is just kind of ad hoc, what we can kind of come up with. Are we looking at a systemic way of doing these projects? Because sometimes, like I said, I just feel like, if we don't do it systemically, we wind up being, it's not equitable, this distribution of these projects. And I don't want to fight with anybody about money. And I appreciate now that we're allocating some money toward Ward 6 and the gyms, but I got people that want alley paving as well. Again, I have hundreds of people walking up and down Martin Luther King with sidewalks that just end out of nowhere, crumbling sidewalk, folks, wheelchair folks riding in the middle of the street because they don't have anywhere else to ride. So just, trying to make sure we're being equitable with these projects. I would hope that we could try to find a way to do that in a more systematic way. And that's all my comments. I appreciate it.
Thanks. I would prefer that we just take this for information, and I appreciate the fact that staff is reallocating some funds for recreation. It's been identified as a priority, but I think it'd be to the benefit of the commission to maintain maximum flexibility in dealing with these SPLOST projects. I mean, why you got to have a budget? I mean, at this point in time, we need to take it just for information as a guide point. I mean, I for instance, don't understand this airport. What's this? The airport building, is that for the FOB?
Yes, it's yeah, there's an overall scope for the airport, and as I said, we have presented to the Aviation Commission, and we'll bring that same presentation to you. Probably I guess we have to do it the first meeting in June, and we'll lay out kind of how the projects are allocated and how the funding is spread and for what. I did want to address one small thing about the CARES Act in the airport.
Anything?
Go ahead, sir.
You're talking about where it can't be incurred or designed before the coronavirus? I'm sorry.
No. Where
Okay.
I was going was the airport funding. I think somebody said, is it a one-time windfall? We're actually able to use that airport funding for operations for 3 consecutive years. And so we are projecting that out into the future. It may be this board's desire to change that, and reallocate that funding and have the general fund support the airport again. But in our projections, we're thinking to use the CARES Act funding for future airport operating expenses in not just this year, but for 3 consecutive years after. But we'll bring that information for you to see it, and you'll see where the airport improvements fit in the overall scheme.
Okay. I mean, I think that there's really no reason to, commit to this reallocation. I mean, let's see where the needs are and address it gradually over the course of the cycle. Like I say, I think the board would be foolish to relinquish flexibility on using these funds. I mean, it's a prior commission. These funds can be allocated. You could allocate it all to recreation. I think has been established. Nobody's going to propose to do that, but I just have some concerns with what I perceive as being a situation where we come back and say, well, no, y'all made that decision in May of 2020. Actually, I wrote down, I think this is significant enough. Once we get past this COVID-19 thing, it might be a good idea to have a retreat and sit down and talk about it. But I think it's unwise to make any long-term decision at this time with everything else we have going on. That's my standpoint. And I do have questions about Henderson and Bill Miller. I mean, I know that the contractor was ready to go with it. I would like us to go ahead and if we need a vote or whatever we need to do to get that extension for those two buildings, and also make some arrangements with a landscape architect or someone who can give us ideas how we can enhance the appearance of both those centers to hopefully not only increase usage, but to improve our perception of our city and our facilities. Anybody else have any questions? Okay. Commissioner, wait. Okay, Commissioner Fuller?
No, sir.
Commissioner Fletcher?
No, sir.
Commissioner Worthington?
Yeah, Mayor, I'm getting an echo. You want to mute? You're not muted. Now you're muted. No, what I do agree with a lot of what you just said, Mayor. This is, in this presentation, it's a lot of moving of money. And some of this we just need to probably play out even the $2 million reduction that may or may not happen.
Mm-hmm.
However, in the budget, we're looking at a budget with a $4.4 million worth of recreation. We don't have that money in SPLOST to spend. So either the budget needs to change or we need to allocate funding differently because the voters voted on this referendum. So if we move money into recreation, we have to, I guess the legal process is we have to vote on it. So we're asking in a budget for 4.4 that's not available in the SPLOST line item. So I guess recreation is the biggest item. I feel like in all of this discussion that we need to have some kind of definitive number. And I guess this would be the first change we've made since the referendum to make an official change to the referendum that was voted on 4 or 5 years ago for the line item of recreation.
I don't think that's correct, Commissioner, but well.
He's muted. You're muted, man.
Okay, this is okay. I actually we can ask the city attorney, but I mean it's my understanding as long as an item's on the referendum that the funds can be spent. This proposed budget is not binding in any way, but we can address that obviously. But I do appreciate the fact that we have allocated additional funds for recreation, because if we are going to improve the offerings to our citizens, it's going to involve some investment. Anything else?
I think to try to clarify that, maybe a staff could come back with what the proposal is just for the recreation line item to make that line item whole. I think everything else is whole and it's within the numbers. I just think that's the glaring number that, and part of it is that downtown connector trail. I'm definitely in support of moving that to the trail line item. That frees up more recreation. But my opinion is I think that's the one line item of all this we really need to probably address before the budget's passed next month.
All right, we'll be sure to bring some information back for the next the next meeting, and we won't put it on there for you to vote. But we'll bring back some options, and we'll try to figure out how else to handle alley paving, since that was one of the items we thought could be picked up with T-SPLOST. So we have to probably go back through it and figure out what other options are there.
Commissioner Langstaff, you have anything?
I do not.
Commissioner Young?
No, sir.
Okay. Anything else from staff on this item?
Nope, that's all I have. Thank you. Derek?
Okay. Now we have the city manager's update.
A few things. One of them is our reopening plan. We're actually in process of developing a written plan for you. After careful consideration and discussions with health officials, we do not think that it's in our interest. I'm sorry that I'm boring you.
No, I'm sorry.
We do not believe that we should open city pools this summer swim season. Normally we would open next week. We just cannot realistically and in good conscience open up and not really be able to monitor showers and changing rooms and issues with lifeguards and, you know, mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. And there are just so many unknowns. Even if we try to do social distancing, you know, it's hard to social distance with a kid that you're teaching to swim. It's just not, we just don't believe it's possible. So it's my recommendation that we do not open the swimming for swim season this year. I have had discussions with the Boys and Girls Club because they normally run 2 and they've concurred, and they're not going to be opening swim season either. We are working through how we do gyms in a social distance way. Some places are figuring it out. And so that is a big front-facing concern for us, especially with the kids being out of school. We're trying to coordinate and also work with the school system and with Boys and Girls Club and the Y and others to figure out how do we engage kids in outdoor activity and maintain some social distancing in the summer so we give them an outlet. So we intend to keep working through those challenges. Through June 12th, my recommendation and decision really is that those who are teleworking continue to telework. As you can see, I'm here today. We've been kind of bopping in and out of the office trying to avoid having too many people here, and all of us are doing that. It really is so much more convenient to be working out of your regular office space, but we're also trying to observe social distancing and lots of hand sanitation. And I'm not wearing a mask now because I'm in here alone, but you know, we are too, you know, masking up wherever we can. And so I just wanted you to be aware we are working actively on the reopening plan and incrementally restarting those operations that we think are safe to do. Some of you have heard a lot about Mask Up Albany. Myself and several on your staff are actively involved with that, getting masks out into the community, encouraging face coverings, and also making sure that small business has access to masks. And Sowega Rising and the Chamber and the Relief and Recovery through the Hope Center have all been very helpful to us in getting masks out into the community. And we had a great meeting with the retailers, and their request of you is that you make it such that it is not a mandatory situation that is on the onus of the business owner. They said they've had in other places a lot of challenges with employees being assaulted when they try to force people to wear masks or refuse them entry because they're not wearing masks. And I told them I would pass that information along to the governing body, but ultimately it's your decision as you consider the issues of face coverings. So everything else, which is going to be a project update, will be coming to you in the form of a written report, which you'll see come to your emails tomorrow. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Items for future agenda, Commissioner Howard.
Mr. Mayor, did I hear you correct? No, not correct, but did the county sign, the resolution that when citizens out in the public, they should wear masks?
Yeah, I was presented, actually, Mr. Davis has drawn it up with Mr. Lee, the county commissioner. Is it an executive order?
No, sir. Just a
Resolution.
resolution encouraging
Yeah, it's not on the agenda today, but I didn't want to sign it without the commission having voted on it. I think we need to put it on the agenda, either maybe for a vote next Tuesday night, but I'd ask Nathan to circulate it. It was presented to me for signature, and I wasn't going to sign it until the commission voted on it. So, but I certainly think I support it. But there again, we have a problem of people failing to understand the limitations that have been imposed on local governments. We can't require people to wear face masks. Businesses can require people to wear face masks, but this resolution would just encourage citizens to wear face coverings when in public. And I think it's a good idea, but like I say, I wasn't going to sign it without consulting the commission.
Hold today because we got a holiday coming up, is Memorial Day, and they're going to be out, it's going to be hot, and it's going to be humid.
Okay. Can we vote on it?
not a formal vote.
We can't take a formal vote. Okay. Yes, Commissioner Howard.
Okay, and item for the next agenda, unfortunate that for those that may not know, I would ask that you consider a former commissioner family in your daily prayer. Mr. Marvin Bannister was a commissioner here, passed away last week, and his funeral has been completed. And at the same time, unfortunately, our city clerk will be out for a number of days. She had, surgery. We can include her in our prayer. And to the city manager, do you have a date that we can tell our constituents when city government will be open back up?
I don't, well, city government is open. If you're asking me when the government center will be open, I don't have a date. I do know it will be after June 12th. But we are encouraging the public to continue to do business with us remotely. But I don't have a date, and that's why we're developing the reopening plan so that we can have a pathway to become open.
That's it, man.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Fuller.
No, sir, nothing at this time.
Commissioner Fletcher.
Well, you mentioned earlier when we started about the employee recognition, and I just wanted to remind you of that. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Commissioner Fletcher. Could we have a resolution, and I would suggest that Public Safety, Public Works, and Albany Transit, and if the city manager knows of any other employees, but I'm particularly concerned about people who've been required to report to work throughout this these last 2 months and have continued to do that job so that the rest of us can be safe and go about our daily lives. Thank you, Commissioner Fletcher. Commissioner Worthington.
Couple things. One is kind of a matter of clarification. I guess in our current meeting structure, public hearings will only be on the night meeting, which is the fourth Tuesday of the month. Is that so? Public hearings for zoning, public hearings for whatever else. Is that the structure that we want to go with going forward? And I saw where there is a budget public hearing next Tuesday, I guess, because you got to have 2 or 3 opportunities. So that may be a little different, maybe.
Right. I don't recall anything prohibiting you from having a public hearing combined with a work session as long as it's advertised, but I'm not certain about that. Nathan, can you opine? Was there something that?
No, that would be, the main thing is the notice requirement on public hearings, for example, for zoning and for the budget.
And so we may not take a vote then.
Right.
It would just be for public input, and the vote would happen at a subsequent meeting.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, and I guess what led me to, we're kind of echoing here. Somebody.
Sorry.
What is, I guess in my ward, there was a zoning on Parker that was happening right when the coronavirus started ramping up, and it was garnering a lot of attention. I've gotten a lot of calls, and so a letter just went out where there is a public hearing scheduled for June the 2nd for this zoning matter. A couple of issues I have with that. No, it's saying it's a virtual public hearing, and that's going to be a challenge for a lot of constituents. And I guess they can make a written, but it's not going to give the same flavor of a public hearing, in my opinion, to do a public hearing in that manner, in terms of hearing feedback, seeing citizens. They were actually in the process of getting petitions signed. And so really we're encouraging them to start going door to door, interacting. This, in my opinion, it's just a little early to get into zoning public hearings. That's just my input, because this is going to be a lot of input in this zoning matter here.
Okay.
Can we delay it? Is there a reason that we set it up for this June 2nd?
Nathan, do you remember, was there some legal challenge to this? I know that there's at least one that the applicant has been waiting to be heard and a public hearing is required, but I think that's different. I think that's an alcohol license appeal. But Nathan, was there something pressing on this one? And Paul, are you on the call? Can you weigh in?
Yes, I'm here, just trying to unmute. There's no legal requirement, I believe. I mean, this is certainly an unusual situation, but the applicant has called me several times wanting to move forward with this. The applicant is getting antsy about it, but I don't know, since this is so unusual, any legalities behind that.
Nathan, can we delay?
Yes, ma'am. And I think the other one you're talking about is the Winterwood subdivision, where due to the proposed use of the property, there was a minimum waiting requirement for the final vote of 6 months, but no more than 9 months. So I think Paul has that diary to come maybe in June or July to y'all on Winterwood for the actual vote. Yeah.
We're not out of time on that one.
Ma'am?
We're not out of time on that one.
Right, but the 6 months has to run. I didn't know if it ran in July or when, right? Yeah, August or whatever, yeah.
It would have to be July, August, or September. We would hold that hearing.
Okay, good. Yeah, just want to make sure it was on the calendar. Thank you.
So my proposal, and I guess Nathan, correct. Well, I'm echoing. Whoops. There you go. My proposal for zoning is until we can allow people to come in the room so we can see their presence and have an easy way for them to communicate with us. I would think we should delay zoning public hearings. It may delay it for another month or two, but a virtual public hearing for a zoning matter is going to be hard to get the true flavor of citizens in that regard. You know, because a lot of times in a public hearing, you might have 20 people who are interested, who want to come show themselves present. They may not want to speak, but yet you see them and you see how big of a zoning, you kind of get a feel for if you do it from a virtual standpoint. I just believe it'd be a challenge for us as commissioners to truly understand the will and the input of citizens. So that would be my input going forward.
Commissioner Langstaff?
Yeah, items for next agenda. I think we ought to put on the code enforcement thing once Nathan has time to give his opinion on it, and let's just decide it. You know, and the issues that John raised today about the cross reporting the departments or whatever, let's just vote it up or down one way or the other.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Young?
Do we lose them?
Commissioner Young?
I'm sorry, I'm here.
Okay.
No, I don't have any new items, but I would like to just thank the entire community. I think it goes without saying that once you know, we had the situation where we were opening back up, I think the whole community came together and did make a very good and rational choice to take it slow and do what we knew we needed to do to make our community safe. And I hope that with everything that we do going forward, that we think about exactly what we're doing. Of course, we all know we've paid a heavy price in this crisis, and I just want everybody to just stay focused on that and keep that same thought in mind with everything we do, the choices that we make individually, as well as a community and a city government. And I just appreciate all the leadership that everybody has shown throughout this thing. It's not over yet, but we got a long way to go. But I think we're definitely we'll see better days if we keep making the decisions that we have done. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Young. Could we just take a straw poll to see who would support a resolution recommending that citizens wear masks in the public? Commissioner Howard?
Absolutely, yes, 100%.
Commissioner Fuller?
Yes.
Commissioner Fletcher?
No.
Okay. Commissioner Worthington?
Yes.
Commissioner Langstaff?
Is it just a recommendation that they wear them?
Yeah, I mean, under the governor's order, you couldn't require it.
All right. Yeah, I guess I'm on the fence. I need to do a little more research.
Okay, good news. Commissioner Young?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, that's a majority. I agree. So, Nathan, could we put that on the agenda for next Tuesday's meeting and have a vote on it?
He's on mute.
Thank you. No, I was double checking with Q to make sure that the agenda is still flexible enough to be added to, and he confirmed it was. So we'll get it done. Yes, sir.
Okay. The other issue I need to address is.
Oops.
Yeah. The other issue I need to address is this question of whether or not the state of emergency should be reinstated. I have had some discussions with the city manager. She has expressed concerns that there needs to be a state of emergency to make sure there's no obstacle to seeking funding that might be available in the event of a disaster. The original state of emergency declared by by Chairman Cohilas and myself expired about May 13th. And so, of course, we are under the statewide state of emergency. But as far as declaring a local state of emergency, I think we need to talk about that. And I'd like to hear, you can call me with your thoughts under the ordinance. I can declare it independently or with the chairman of the county commission. The issue here is the EOC continues to be in operation, and I don't know if that's appropriate having the state of emergency having expired. It might be because we do have a statewide state of emergency. That's something we need to look at. But I would appreciate y'all's thoughts, any suggestions y'all might have on that. But as y'all know, the task force continues to meet on virtually Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and we have these bi-weekly press conferences, which I think are beneficial. A lot of people in the community are looking for guidance and information. Other people have let me know it's getting kind of tiresome. Y'all say the same thing every meeting, but you're not going to have a complete agreement. But if you would, please think about that in the next 24, 48 hours and let me know what your thoughts are. I'd appreciate that.
Mayor, could I say something?
Sure.
Please. And now understanding what you were asking, yes, if it's a recommendation only, because I do believe that when we're out, we need to mask up as much as possible. So you would get my support on that.
Okay. We'll have that on the agenda, and it looks like it will pass if nothing changes, and I'll sign the resolution and we'll have it adopted with the county commission. It'll be a joint resolution.
Thank you, sir.
With that, Mr. Hicks.
Mayor, you want to be reminded of the agenda item for thanking the employees?
Yes, I think we discussed that, didn't we, Nathan?
Okay.
Yeah. Appreciate Mr. Hicks. And like I say, if anybody has any other ideas about recognizing any additional employees, please let me know, because if there are folks who've been coming to work and we don't want to there'll be any oversight, because what we're doing here is small consolation, but it is an expression of our gratitude, and I think it's appropriate. Any further comments, questions, concerns? With that, we will stand adjourned. Thank you for your attendance.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.